Welcome into the Fantasy Football Diagnostics Podcast, where we provide you with your weekly diagnosis of everything fantasy football. Whether it's season-long leagues, dynasty, DFS, or sometimes even IDP, we got you covered all year long. Let's do it. Let's get to it. Welcome into the Fantasy Football Diagnostics Podcast. It is Wednesday, October 18th, 2023. I'm your host, John June, at the real John J _FF on X and Instagram. Solo show today. Our boy Greg Penniman can't be here with us today. He'll be back with us tomorrow, so don't fret. But don't worry, I'm not new to this. I can hold this down solo dolo all by myself. So it is our Thursday night football preview. Obviously going to break down Thursday night football, get into some streams of the week, also break down all of those 1 p.m. games. We don't have a London game this week, so no need to worry about your lineup so early at 9:30 in the morning. But we do have, quite a few teams on bye this week. In week 7, the Carolina Panthers, Cincinnati Bengals, Dallas Cowboys, New York Jets, Tennessee Titans, and the Houston Texans are all on bye. So avoid from putting those players into your lineups because they will not get you any fantasy points. So as we move closer into the season or deeper into the season, these wins, they become much more important. People are panicking about rosters and about their records, and all I could say is just keep playing. That's really all you can do. You just got to keep playing. You got to keep, staying on the waiver wire, trying to make trades, being active in your league, trying to pick up players, anticipate the breakout. And if you see backup running backs, that are in heavy timeshares, or not timeshares, but that are, where the starter sees a heavy workload, go ahead and pick those guys up, right? Because those guys are an injury away from having an opportunity to be in the guy and sometimes a good offense, right? Look at the Rams situation. It's unfortunate what happened with Ronnie Rivers. I saw this tweet somebody had posted where I forget who it was. I can't give them credit for it, but they had said that they had done the right thing. They picked up Ronnie Rivers right before the 4:00 games. And they were not hoping, but when Kyron Williams went down, they're like, oh, well, I got Ronnie Rivers, like, let's go, and then find out Ronnie Rivers gets hurt, right? So, sometimes it just takes a little bit of luck, and luck could be good, luck could be bad. So, just keep striving, keep working, keep grinding, keep listening to us, right? So make sure you subscribe to the show, whether you're watching on YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, or you are, shouldn't say Twitter anymore, X or Twitch, or you are listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Google Play. Just make sure you stay subbed, make sure you got the notifications on. If you're watching the show live, make sure you comment and get in the comments. So let's have a dialogue. Let's have some conversation. Love help, being able to help people out when they have questions. So enough of me rambling and talking. We do have some news that literally just hit. Mecole Hardman traded from the New York Jets to the Kansas City Chiefs. It was, widely expected that Hardman would have a role in this Jets offense, but through 6 weeks, that has not been the case at all. So Hardman goes back to the Chiefs, the team that originally drafted him, and let him walk in free agency. And now he enters a situation where there's not a lot going on that Chiefs, that in that Chiefs receiving room. I mean, the rookie Rashee Rice is probably the most notable player in that offense right now in terms of being able to, from a wide receiver perspective. Obviously, we know Travis Kelce is Travis Kelce, but just being able to actually be a reliable target for Patrick Mahomes. Last year in 8 games, Mecole Hardman had 297 receiving yards and 4 touchdown receptions. to also go along with 2 rushing touchdowns. So, again, that was in just 8 games. His last 17-game season with the Chiefs was his best. Almost 700 receiving yards. Had 2 touchdown receptions. So, definitely, he's not a a bad player by any means. I think he's very there's a very specific skill set that he has. I think Andy Reid can utilize that. What does that become from a fantasy perspective? I mean, the Chiefs clearly have come out and said that, hey, we need help at wide receiver because they went out and acquired one. So, and one that they're familiar with. So I think, he's going to have an instant role in the offense. What does that role look like in his first week? Probably not. Again, I think the range of outcomes is pretty wide here, right? You got a player who's in the system, been in the system, and is not coming off the couch. He's been in training camp. He was with the Jets just now. Has been playing. When he was active. So, yeah, I think that he's probably worth a speculative ad in deep leagues, right? Could it be more than wide receiver 3 or low end flex? Probably not, but worth a shot when he's playing with Patrick Mahomes. George Playo 1 saying, should I start in my flex James Cook, Zach Evans, or Roshan Johnson? Don't even think about that one. Just go ahead and start James Cook. I mean, we don't know what Zach Evans' role is going to be. We don't know what Roshan Johnson's role is going to be in his first game back with Deontay Foreman actually being active, and those two being the only options in the backfield with Khalil Herbert out. I think it's got to be James Cook. I know the production probably hasn't been there, but the volume has been there, and I think that's more believable than anything else that we could speculate on. Let's jump into Thursday night football, and we've got it's an interesting one. We've got the 4-2 Jacksonville Jaguars traveling to New Orleans to take on the 3-3 New Orleans Saints, where this game has a 39-point total. And the New Orleans Saints are 3-point favorites at home here. Trevor Lawrence is questionable in this one. I believe he was a limited participant in practice. Obviously had they practiced yesterday, everything is kind of a walkthrough and a lead up to these Thursday night games. He was initially listed as day-to-day. You know what I say about day-to-day. And the Jags signed a quarterback to the active roster, Nathan Rookray, from their practice squad. So that's usually not a great sign. Could have just been an emergency thing, so you never really know. But I think this one's going to take down to the wire. The matchup isn't particularly great. The New Orleans Saints are 25th against quarterbacks. And we'll get into that in a little bit. But in terms of the game here, I'm going to take the under. I'm going to take the Saints to cover. I'm going to take the Saints to win. And I say all that because Trevor Lawrence, again, might not play in this game. I think this is a much different Jacksonville Jaguars team when he is playing and healthy and active. So I do. Plus, if he does play, I do anticipate that he struggles. So again, Saints are 25th against quarterbacks. We are missing, quite a few players. I mean, I guess, are we really missing quarterbacks? From a fantasy perspective, it feels like we're really just missing Joe Burrow and CJ Stroud. I don't think anyone's really, really irked that they don't have their Bryce Young or their Zach Wilsons or, Ryan Tannehill's injured, but Malik Willis or, even Dak Prescott. So did have a good game the other day from a fantasy perspective, but, we kind of expected that. Anyway, getting a little off topic here. Trevor Lawrence, not interested in starting him in this game, healthy or not, active or not. Again, New Orleans Saints have been a pretty good pass defense. They've been a pretty good defense in general. They don't really allow a ton of points to any positions. The lowest that they are amongst any position in terms of fantasy points allowed is 17th against the tight end. And 25th against quarterbacks, 31st against running backs, and 19th against wide receivers. So not particularly great there. So yeah, again, not really looking at Trevor Lawrence. Travis Etienne, he is an RB1. I mean, he's been on fire lately. So you got to roll him out there. Tough matchup or not, the volume should be there, especially if Trevor Lawrence is limited in any way. So you got to expect that. And then at wide receiver, Christian Kirk, Calvin Ridley, both going to see those guys as wide receiver twos. The Calvin Ridley breakout, mini breakout hasn't really happened the way we hoped. So obviously we don't want to make any declarations now. It's only week 7, but we hope that gets better and continues. But I do trust Christian Kirk over Ridley a little bit more just because he's been more consistent. Evan Ingram, I think you got to treat him as a tight end 1. On the New Orleans Saints side, Alvin Kamara, he's got to be an RB1 for you. I mean, matchup is nothing particularly to write home about. I mean, they're 17th, the Jacksonville Jaguars against running backs. Where they do struggle is against wide receivers. I do like Michael Thomas and Chris Olave to have decent games here as strong wide receiver 2s with potentially some wide receiver 1 upside. I think Rashid Shaheed is a volatile wide receiver 3. I think, because I like the weapons so much here in this game, Michael Thomas, Chris Olave, Alvin Kamara, even though the Jacksonville is over the last 3 weeks, they are 19th against the quarterback. That's not particularly anything to write home about, but the fact that these weapons are in such a good spot, it makes me have a little bit more faith in Derek Carr. So I think if you're in trouble this week at the position, Derek Carr makes a ton of sense as a streaming option. He was very close to being my stream of the week, but he was not quite my top streaming option this week, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But and as it pertains to this matchup, I think he's in a great spot here for those that are in need of a quarterback streaming option, with CJ Stroud and Joe Burrow both being on bye this week. So let's jump into bold predictions. And again, this is usually just ends up being a prop bet here. But Michael Thomas, I like him this week. I like his reception prop. It's 4.5. Not a lot of value in it. 4.5 or plus, minus 154. But I'm gonna parlay that here with the Chris Olave anytime touchdown. I think Olave has been getting some looks in the end zone. He's been getting some of these deep shots. And it's been targeted inside the 5, and just they haven't been converting. They haven't been falling. Derek Carr is due for some positive regression in the touchdown department as well. So I like Chris Olave to be the one to finally take that one home there. He's plus 185 for an anytime touchdown. You parlay those two together. Again, Michael Thomas over 4.5 receptions and Chris Olave an anytime touchdown. You get plus 382. So I do like that a lot, and that's what I'm going to be rolling with. So if you want to tail it, by all means, I definitely invite you to do that. Moving on to streams of the week, and my quarterback stream of the week this week, alluded to a guy I like. Again, Derek Carr, I like him very much this week. Just like this next guy a little bit higher, and that is Baker Mayfield, 28% rostered in Yahoo leagues. He's currently the quarterback 17 on the year in fantasy points per game. He's had 3 of 5 games where he was over 16 fantasy points, and now he gets a matchup against Atlanta, who have allowed an average of 16.3 fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks over their last 3. Baker has been solid, especially pushing the ball down the field, as he's 10th in air yards per game and 13th in touchdown passes. And again, that includes that he's had a bye week. So it's a rough week for streamers, but I think Baker's the best of the bunch for me. So he's the guy I'm going to go after this week. My tight end stream of the week this week is Michael Mayer going up against Chicago. He's 15% rostered in Yahoo leagues. I'm going to take my shot here on the talented rookie. Was an early second-round pick. Just needed to get those opportunities, and they've been coming over these last 3 weeks. He's gone from playing 50% of the snaps to 65% of the snaps to 81% of the snaps in his most recent game And that included a game where he saw a 19% target share in that last game against the New England Patriots. So willing to definitely take my shot ahead of the matchup here against Chicago, who over the last 3 weeks has allowed the 8th most fantasy points, PPR fantasy points to the tight end position. So yeah, Michael Mayer, I'm definitely going to take my shot on a second round rookie. And then my defensive stream of the week this week, give me the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going up against Atlanta. They are 39% rostered in Yahoo leagues. They are currently the 7th ranked defense on the season for fantasy purposes. They are my 5th ranked defense on the week going up against the Atlanta Falcons. I've got them down for the 6th highest projected sack rate in week 7, along with the 4th highest projected interception rate in week 7. So they're not a bad defense. They've already had their bye week, so they are kind of giving some set it and forget it type vibes here with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Do want to say Las Vegas probably was going to be my top option here. When I woke up this morning, they were right over the 50% mark. They're at 51%, so I will give them an honorable mention here because they could potentially get a backup quarterback for the Chicago Bears in Tyson Bagent. So yeah, if the Raiders are available, then that's probably where I would look to go. Then Tampa Bay for this week and as well as potentially even long term. So let's get into the matchups here. I'm going to run through these relatively quickly. It is just me. If you have questions, dump them in the chat, and be more than happy to answer them. George Play 01 asking, should I add JSN for Algier? My running backs are CMC, K9, Cook, Warren, Evans, and Roshan. Absolutely. JSN has been playing a lot. His snaps went up. His route usage went up. So it didn't show up in the box score, but he's definitely a guy I would like to sneakily add to my roster because he was, someone who was drafted highly by fantasy managers in the event that he would have a role early. That did not happen. But as I often say right here on this show, rookies after the bye week love me a bye week bump, and JSN definitely fits that mold of a talented rookie. Look, these NFL teams, they go during the bye week, they self-scout, they say, how can we improve? Who's playing well? Who's not playing well? How can we get the person who's playing well more playing time, more time, more touches, more opportunities to make plays? And hence here we are. So definitely like, JSN as a speculative ad here. All right, let's move on to breaking down some games. We've got the 3-3 Las Vegas Raiders traveling to Chicago to take on the 1-5 Chicago Bears. This game has a 37.5 point total, where the Las Vegas Raiders are 3-point road favorites here. I'm going to take the under in this game. I'm going to take Las Vegas to cover. I'm going to take Las Vegas to win. You have both teams potentially going to play with a backup quarterback. The only difference here is Tyson Bagent is a rookie, whereas Brian Hoyer, who will probably be making the start for the Raiders, is a vested veteran. So, he may not have all the physical tools in the world. He probably never had them to really begin with. No shade, Brian Hoyer, but this is a game I think where the Raiders have the advantage here. Because again, their defense has been playing so well. I think Justin Fields and his mobility, his ability to make plays, is with his legs, mask a lot of the issues that the Bears have on the O-line. Don't get me wrong, Justin Fields calls a lot of sacks, but I think he also avoids a lot of sacks as well. So I think Max Crosby has a little bit of a field day here, so that's why I'm taking the Raiders. On the Bears side, again, Justin Fields, not expecting him to play this week with that dislocated thumb on his right hand. So DJ Moore, I think you have to, he was still playing so well with Justin Fields. I think you got to treat him as a wide receiver too, regardless of who the quarterback is, until, obviously Fields comes back, then he'll be back to being a wide receiver one. Colt Kmet, rather, I think he's a tight end one. The question I have about the Bears is, do you play any of their running backs, right? Deontay Foreman, we see him come, active for the first time, since week 1. He had a role, but Roshan Johnson was out with a concussion. So, do they see Deontay Foreman as the guy, handling first and second down work to purely take over the Khalil Herbert role, and Roshan, continues to have his role as the change of pace back and the third down back? Or do they have a situation here where they view Roshan as the next man up, and he'll take on a full workload? So that'll remain to be seen. But I'm trying to avoid this running back situation if I can. But if I had to play one, I do like Roshan because I do like his reception upside. So, yeah, that's probably where I would go there. On the Raiders side, they're playing with the backup quarterback as well. I don't think that matters as much for those pieces. Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, I'm going to treat them as wide receiver ones. Michael Mayer, my tight end stream of the week, I'm going to treat him as a tight end one. And then Josh Jacobs, I think, has got to be treated as a running back one in this matchup. I think they lean on him heavily in this game. George Player One asking, I have Tua in Fields. Should I drop Fields for Murray? That's an interesting one. If you have an IR spot, I would drop Fields, or not Fields. I would drop maybe a bench player if I could for Murray. Stick Murray in the IR spot and then see what happens with Fields. I don't know if I could drop Fields, honestly. But you do have Tua, so this is purely just like an upside play here. I think I would stand pat. Let's move on to this next game here. We've got the 4-2 Buffalo Bills traveling to New England to take on the 1-5 New England Patriots. This game has a 41.5 point total, where the Bills are 8.5 point favorites. I am going to take the under here. I can't believe I'm going to do this, but give me New England to cover and give me Buffalo Bills to win. This game is in New England. Josh Allen's a little banged up with the shoulder. He will play. Belichick has historically given Josh Allen some trouble in New England. I know that, Josh Allen's gotten the best of him, a few times over these last couple of years. So I feels tough to take the Patriots to cover 8.5 points the way they're playing right now, but maybe I'm just conditioned to seeing the old Patriots that, Belichick expecting him to bounce back at some point and get the team to play better. But, if they can't cover this one, this is probably the last time I'll pick them to cover. But on the in terms of the fantasy, Josh Allen, QB1, Stephon Diggs, wide receiver 1, Gabe Davis, wide receiver 2, James Cook, got to be an RB2 for you this week. And then on the New England Patriots side, Ramondre Stevenson bounced back last week. I think he slides in as an RB2. Kendrick Bourne gets interesting for me. I think, question is, can he be trusted as a wide receiver 2? I think the talent is there, right? When they give him the opportunities, he's clearly their best receiver. But a question is, do they give him those opportunities consistently? I'm not really sure there, but I'm willing to take the shot on him. I think he can bounce back here, or not bounce back, but be a consistent, contributor here as a wide receiver too. Moving on to the next matchup, we've got the 3-3 Atlanta Falcons traveling to Tampa Bay to take on the 3-2 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This game has a 38.5 point total. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are minus 2.5 or 2.5 point favorites here. Going to take the under here. I'm going to take Tampa Bay to cover. Going to take Tampa Bay to win. Bijan Robinson been a little disappointing as of late, but I think he's got to be treated as an RB1. Drake London has been doing well in the great matchups. He's been okay otherwise, but I'm going to have him as wide receiver 3 in this one. Kyle Pitts, I think you got to put him in tight end 1 territory, and I know it's been rough a couple years here with Pitts, but a few years here with Pitts, but I think you treat him as a tight end 1 this week. On the Tampa Bay side, Baker Mayfield, he's a QB1. Chris Godwin, I have him slightly ahead of Mike Evans as a wide receiver 1. I think Mike Evans does see a lot of A.J. Terrell this week on the outside, so he's going to be a wide receiver 2 for me. But I think obviously, a threat to score a deep touchdown or make a big play. And then Rachaad White is going to be an RB3 for me this week. Moving on to this next one, we've got the 3-3 Washington Commanders traveling to New York, or MetLife rather, to take on the 1-5 New York Giants, where this game has a 39.5 point total, and the New York Giants are 1.5 point home dogs here. I'm going to take the over. I'm going to take Washington to cover. I'm going to take Washington to win. Saquon Barkley, I think you got to treat him as an RB1. Darren Waller, a tight end 1. Wan'Dale Robinson, he's going to be a wide receiver 2 for me in PPR leagues. It's going to be interesting. The Washington Commanders have been tore up by the wide receiver position, but a lot of the wide receivers have been these outside receivers, making plays down the field. That is not Wan'Dale Robinson, so I'm very curious to see what that looks like this week, but he'll be a wide receiver 2 for me in PPR leagues. On the Washington side, I think Sam Howell's a low-end QB1. The Giants defense played well against Josh Allen. I don't know if that was game plan specific, with obviously the history of Brian Daboll and, having coached Josh Allen and knowing that coaching staff. And, so I'm just, I curious to see if Sam Howell could take advantage of a Giants defense that was struggling prior to that. Terry McLaurin, I think he's a wide receiver 1. Brian Robinson, I think you got to treat him as an RB2. I think with the bye weeks, Antonio Gibson makes some sense as a flex option, a desperation flex or desperation running back play. Curtis Samuel is a wide receiver 3 for me this week. Jahan Dotson unplayable at the moment, and Logan Thomas did not come through last week. Will be a lower end tight end 1 for me this week. Moving on to this next game, we've got the 3-2 Cleveland Browns traveling to Indy to take on the 3-3 Indianapolis Colts, where this game has a 39.5 point total. The Cleveland Browns are 2.5 point favorites on the road here. I'm going to take the under. I'm going to take the Cleveland Browns to cover, and I'm going to take the Cleveland Browns to win this game. Jerome Ford, RB1 for me this week. I love this spot for him. I think we talked about the schedule and what it could look like. And I think he's absolutely in a smash spot here against the Colts. Probably a little bit more on that tomorrow, maybe, potentially. We'll see. Kareem Hunt, I think, is an RB3. Amari Cooper, a wide receiver 2. I think if Deshaun Watson plays, he's interesting in this matchup. Obviously, we know how bad the Colts have been against running backs or against quarterbacks rather in passing games. So I think he's definitely in a nice spot. On the Indianapolis side, I think Jonathan Taylor takeover is now. I think it's here. Granted, the matchup is not too great here on this end. So that part is interesting. Cleveland over the last 3 weeks are 13th against running backs, so a little bit better than what it looks like from a season-long total perspective, but definitely, one that is not particularly great on paper. I would like to avoid the Indianapolis passing attack if possible. Against wide receivers, the Cleveland Browns are 32nd over the last 3 weeks. They're 8th against quarterbacks, though, and 11th against tight ends. So maybe Kyle Granson has some upside there as a tight end play, but I don't particularly want to play Gardner Minshew in this game. Moving on to the last game of this slate, the 5-1 Detroit Lions traveling to Baltimore to take on the 4-2 Baltimore Ravens, where this game has a 41.5 point total, and the Baltimore Ravens are 3-point favorites at home. I'm going to take the over here. I'm going to take the Baltimore Ravens to cover and the Baltimore Ravens to win. And Lamar's got to be a QB1. Zay Flowers, wide receiver 2. Mark Andrews, a tight end 1. Not particularly interested in the running backs. Detroit really good against running backs over the last 3 weeks. They allow the least amount of fantasy points to the running back position in PPR leagues over their last 3 games. So, yeah, I'm going to stay away from Gus Edwards and Justice Hill in this one. On the Detroit side, Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver 1, Sam Laporta, a tight end 1. Jared Goff, slightly interesting here as a quarterback 2. I mean, he's been so productive and so good in all his matchups, regardless of what they've been, how tough they've been. He's been involved in this offense, and now you have potentially no David Montgomery here. So I think Goff is an interesting QB2. Jahmyr Gibbs, I think, will slide in as an RB2, but I think Craig Reynolds is also playable, especially if Jahmyr Gibbs, who's dealing with a hamstring injury of his own, can't go. All right, that is it, y'all. Thank you for joining. Thank you for listening. Definitely appreciate the love. And obviously it was a solo pod, so I had to hold it down. But again, not foreign to me. But yeah, we will catch y'all tomorrow. Have a good one. We're out of here. Peace.